This is Investment Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Daily live streaming interactive featuring Mrs. Backup. Subscribe, hit the notification, smash the likes. Now, here's Backup Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to Investment Perspectives, everybody. I wanted to make another video. It seems how we're taking the 12 o'clock live show off today for the holiday. Hope everybody's having a great holiday. And I want to give a very special thanks to all the servicemen and women and family members, those who have been lost and those that are still with us and those that are inactive right now, but appreciate your service, however it goes, no doubt about it. Okay, before we get started here, I wanted to touch on a few pieces of information. The larger narrative here is, and this isn't hype for me because I believe Ripple is absolutely going to take over the entire digital asset space. I think there's going to be a lot of winners and I think there's going to be a lot of losers. But I think one of the main winners is XRP. And the reason I feel that way is because I believe it will be a digital asset that is a part of the framework of this space and not just a digital asset. All right, so getting into this, to that point, let's talk about this right here. Ripple XRP volume between the U.S. and Europe explodes. Ripple CTO David Schwartz commented on this and confirms that 1.5 million increase of the euro to USD pair for the on-demand liquidity payment solution. And he made a remark on Twitter, which was pretty amazing. And we'll get into that in a second as well. Let's see here. The liquidity in the corridors of the digital asset XRP remains at high levels in two of its corridors, but is down for the XRP PHP pair. Let's get into this little piece right here. In response to a direct question, Ripple CTO David Schwartz confirmed the transaction volume growth for the on-demand liquidity payment solution for the Euro USD. ODL is one of Ripple's most attractive products. It uses XRP to make instant payments securely without limitations of working hours or holidays for traditional finance systems. On the social network on Twitter, a conversation emerged about the performance of ODL. Several users stated that the payment solution showed a strong increase of 1.5 million in transaction volume in one day for the Euro USD pair. One of the participants of the discussion stated that this occurred despite the fact that Ripple CTO had said that ODL does not target liquid corridors such as Euro USD pair. Another user confirmed that this demanded with regard to the growth in this pair. A response from David Schwartz. He confirmed the above mentioned spike and responded as follows. I didn't think it would make sense in corridors that already are so efficient and liquid, but we have customers who say the speed and availability at all hours and during holidays makes it useful to them. It's a powerful comment that David's making here. In the same discussion, another user asked David Schwartz about the possibility of eliminating Nostro Voce for these corridors. Ripple CTO responded, yes, the benefit of having to keep only one pile of money in one place across multiple corridors is a factor as well. Also, if we're doing USD to Euro as source currencies, it's not hard to add USD to Euro. All you need is the last mile to get to the recipient. Another powerful comment from David. On-demand liquidity operates with the Ripple partners such as MoneyGram, via Americas, GoLance, Interbank Peru, and according to Ripple report, has seen 550% increase in volume during 2019. The XRP volume remains high on several corridors, according to the liquidity index bot. XRP has maintained the increase in liquidity recorded since almost mid-May. In the corridor between Mexico and the United States, the transaction volume has remained 29,885,150 XRP, with 92% progress of the day and only a slight fall of about 100,000 XRP since May 14th. Now, it goes through and it breaks down the Australian corridor, the Philippine corridor, and that's the end of the article. Here's what I want to say about this. First of all, that's extremely exciting. It's extremely exciting because it is exactly like David said. They were looking, and even Bob Way had said it when he was on the show, about pursuing the more exotic corridors to build liquidity and demand in the more exotic corridors because there's less competition in those corridors. So it's easier for them to go in those areas and set up shop. knowing that if we do well in all of these other exotic corridors, eventually you could find yourself in a more liquid corridor such as the USD and the Euro. However, they're seeing a really great response in that corridor already. Now, I would be very clear to say that $1.5 million in transaction volume in one day isn't a solution make, but I think it points to one. I think it points to a resolution, more importantly, that we will be going there. And it is a choice, and it is being chosen. And if that happened in one day, this early, imagine what will happen in 1 year. My point on top of all of this is simply this, because I get tons of questions where people go, all this great news and the price doesn't move. And you're absolutely right. However, I do believe, as Cryptopolis says so well on this show, eventually fundamentals will catch up to the price of the token. I'm reminded of Glenn Hutchins and what he says. The value is in the protocol. The price of the token is a distraction and, in fact, uninformative. When I look at a larger scope and kind of pull back on this thing and zoom out a little bit, I think we all realize that Ripple, in some degree, great or small, is headed towards an IPO. We don't have an announcement, but we know that they're making their way there. There's enough evidence to know that that is where they're headed. We don't know the day. But I believe, in conjunction with what we have seen with MoneyGram and the other corridors, Australian, Philippine, Mexican corridors, in a regular business model, you would be interested not only in getting those corridors open, but you would be interested in getting an enormous amount of competitors to participate in those same corridors. Because if you do, then the demand for XRP in those corridors is increased even more. But we don't see that. That tells me what we are seeing is a litmus test, a live proof of concept versus the many simulations and models that have probably gone on for years. The fact that any business interested in growth and firing up the engines and getting things moving very quickly would be very interested in getting many remittance companies competing in the same corridor, creating a flywheel, a buy and buy back scenario of the asset XRP. We have not seen that yet. Why not? I personally am going to speculate here, which I do quite a bit often on the show. I'm going to suggest that the reason we haven't seen that is because, for one, XRP has a different path because it's been commissioned. This is not the idea of an entrepreneur. This is an idea that has been commissioned and summoned. That's how they got on the Faster Payments Task Force for the Federal Reserve. That's how they got all the meetings with the central banks of the world, the largest financial payment providers. You know the list. An entrepreneurial vision versus a commissioned, out and out government regulated destination for an entity or a product. There's the delineation I see between Ripple, the blockchain company, infrastructure company, and XRP, the decentralized asset. How would you out and out regulate a decentralized asset? By defining the framework of this space and using it. And more importantly, by using the protocol that the token exists on as a trust layer foundation for everything to transact across or build on. And it can remain decentralized in the process. Now, a lot of people say, we need more regs. That's what we need. We need more regulation. I certainly believe we will get more regulation, but I don't believe it's more regulation we need. What we need is what the XRP token resides on, and that's a decentralized exchange for all the money to transact across and all the assets to be digitized and tokenized and placed on the ledger so they can begin to move in a way that we've never seen in the history of mankind. Knowing that Ripple has said that they're going to IPO at some point makes me speculate and think to myself, Ripple's price isn't going anywhere for the lack of regulation. Ripple's XRP price isn't going anywhere for the lack of an IPO. Once Ripple, the blockchain infrastructure company, IPOs, I believe the XRP token will begin to move on its own course across charted waters as a true decentralized asset. Just as I believe Bitcoin needs to decouple from all the altcoins in the space so we can have a mature market, I believe the same is true on a smaller micro level for Ripple, the blockchain company, and the token XRP. Once Ripple truly IPOs, I believe XRP will be free to run on its own 2 feet. And it's already there now, but I believe there will be no legality issues for the fact that Ripple will become an initial public offering and a public company. And XRP will be the decentralized asset that uses the XRP protocol, the ledger, which becomes a foundation and a trust layer that the entire digital asset space will be working across, through, or transacting on. You pick the phrase. In conjunction with the interledger protocol, which is not a distributed ledger technology per se, but a layer of protocol that interacts with any other network to be able to exchange value of that currency, whether it be fiat, cryptocurrency, a digital asset, a stable coin that represents the value of other assets like gold, oil, stocks. I believe that is the vision of where we're going. And when I think these days, why is the price of Ripple or XRP not moving? It's because we need to see the blockchain infrastructure company go public. And once it does, I think XRP will be free to run. All right, that's going to do it for me, guys. Don't forget, there is the comment that Brad Garlinghouse said at Davos that they did intend to IPO, but he said over the next 12 months that, they might tend to, I'm paraphrasing, they plan on IPO at some point. But he did say they weren't going to be first, they weren't going to be last, but they expected to be leading. So, with that being said, real quick before we go, JP Morgan recently extended its banking services to Coinbase and Gemini. Now there's also talk about the potential upcoming Coinbase IPO could define crypto's relationship with Wall Street in the near future. Could we see Gemini and Coinbase potentially be the first companies to IPO in this space, followed by Ripple? Again, Brad Garlinghouse said they expect to be leading, but not to be first and certainly not to be last. This may just be one hell of a summer. Also, to drop this on you right before we go, Binance is absolutely pushing things forward, launches Ripple, XRP, and Ethereum options for their platform. Now, this is exciting because we're talking about products that are being offered on top of the underlying asset. This is starting to look like the traditional markets when you see futures, options, call options, swaps, puts. When you see these kinds of products being offered, you don't necessarily have to know anything about them other than to know they're in this space. And the more that those products come into this space, the more you can bet your bottom dollar. So is Wall Street and the large institutions in this world. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. If you like the material, please hit the like and subscribe. Again, shout out to all the military people in this world and families. We appreciate your service and your honor. All right, take care. We'll catch you on the next one.